This is absolutely explosive. Just moments ago, in a development that has sent shockwaves through the very heart of Westminster and Buckingham Palace, the contents of Prince William's 12-page constitutional memorandum have been leaked. I repeat, the memo has been leaked. This is the document that sources inside Number 10 desperately and unsuccessfully tried to suppress. The royal family is once again in complete chaos as the government scrambles to respond to the devastating constitutional bombshells that Prince William has personally authored. What we are about to reveal is the most significant royal intervention in British politics in over a century. Trust me, you need to hear every single word of this, because the 5 bombshells contained in this document don't just challenge Keir Starmer's government. They expose a level of constitutional recklessness that should terrify every single British citizen. Let me be crystal clear about what is happening at this very moment. According to 3 separate sources, 1 inside the Palace of Westminster and 2 with close ties to Kensington Palace, the 12-page document was leaked to a senior constitutional editor at the BBC at approximately 4:30 p.m. this afternoon. The fallout was immediate. One source described the scene inside Number 10 as absolute pandemonium, with aides running between offices and crisis meetings being called at the highest level. Prince William, according to these sources, was informed of the leak while attending a private charity engagement. An eyewitness described him as calm but resolute, stating that the prince reportedly told a senior aide, "The constitutional principles at stake are more important than palace protocols the British people have a right to know." This isn't just a letter. This is a meticulously crafted, legally devastating takedown of the government's entire plan. This 12-page document, which we have now obtained portions of, is divided into 7 sections, culminating in 5 specific, unanswerable constitutional charges. Starmer didn't just try to hide this. He tried to bury it, and now the truth is coming out. Here's the situation that reveals the deeper power struggle and the calculated cover-up by Starmer's government. We've learned that when the 12-page memorandum was hand-delivered to Number 10 Downing Street 2 days ago by a senior royal aide, it caused immediate panic. According to a source inside the building, the document was taken directly to Keir Starmer, who met with his inner circle for 90 minutes in what was described as an absolutely electric crisis meeting. The first instinct wasn't discussion, it was suppression. Our sources confirm that within 2 hours of receiving William's memo, Number 10's legal advisors were exploring options to gag the media from reporting on its specific contents, potentially using national security as a pretext to request a D-notice. Think about that. The government's first reaction to legitimate constitutional concerns from the heir to the throne was to attempt to impose censorship. But wait, it gets significantly worse. A senior Whitehall official who spoke to us on condition of anonymity revealed that a directive was sent out from the Cabinet Office describing the memo as a sensitive internal document and warning that any civil servant who discussed its contents would be in breach of the Official Secrets Act. This wasn't just a cover-up, this was a direct threat to the civil service to enforce a wall of silence. Why were they so terrified? Because, as our source put it, the memo isn't a complaint, it's an indictment. It forensically dismantles the government's proposed legislation piece by piece, and it does so with a level of constitutional knowledge that has left government lawyers stunned. One Number 10 insider reportedly told a colleague, "We catastrophically underestimated him. We thought he was a ceremonial figure. He's a constitutional heavyweight." This leak hasn't just embarrassed Starmer. It has exposed his government's attempt to silence the future king. And now we can reveal the first devastating bombshell from that memo. Here is the first constitutional bombshell from Prince William's 12-page memo, a charge so serious it calls into question the very legality of Starmer's entire legislative agenda. Sources who have read the document confirm that on page 3, Prince William lays out what he calls the unlawful usurpation of royal prerogative. I'm not exaggerating when I say this is a constitutional atom bomb. William, supported by what sources tell us are volumes of legal precedent, directly accuses the Starmer government of attempting to use simple legislation to bypass and effectively erase centuries of established royal prerogative powers that belong to the Crown, not to politicians. Here's the key point. The proposed legislation, which aims to strip the monarchy of key ceremonial powers, is being rammed through Parliament. William's memo argues that these powers, such as the appointment of ministers and the formal assent to laws, are not just ceremonial, they are the fundamental bedrock of the British Constitution's checks and balances. By attempting to alter them without cross-party consensus and, crucially, without the proper engagement of the Crown, Starmer is accused of acting ultra vires beyond his legal authority. A source close to the Palace legal team told us that William's argument is this: the government cannot simply vote to give itself powers that have belonged to the Crown for 600 years. That is not democracy. That is tyranny. Think about what that actually means. The future king has, in a formal document, accused the Prime Minister of acting like a tyrant and attempting a constitutional coup. The memo reportedly cites the case of proclamations of 1611 and other ancient legal principles that Starmer's team either ignored or, more terrifyingly, never even knew existed. This isn't just a political disagreement, it's an accusation of illegality at the highest level. But don't just take my word for it. Senior constitutional lawyers are now, for the first time, seeing the sheer depth of Prince William's argument, and their analysis should concern every person in Britain. Professor Alistair Finch of Oxford University, a man who has advised 2 prime ministers on constitutional law, described the argument in William's memo as constitutional dynamite. He told the BBC this morning, just 1 hour ago, "What Prince William has done is move this from a political debate to a legal one. He is essentially arguing that the government is attempting to build a house with no foundations. This legislation, if it passes, would immediately trigger a constitutional crisis because it violates the fundamental unwritten rules that govern this nation." He specifically stated that the government's attempt to use a simple parliamentary majority to alter the Crown's role represents the most dangerous executive overreach since the 17th century. Those are his words. Dangerous executive overreach. But wait, because the memo's legal brilliance goes even deeper. A King's Counsel, who claims to have been briefed on the memo's contents, told The Times today that William's argument on prerogative is unanswerable. He wrote, "The Prime Minister seems to believe he is the head of a republic. He is not. He is the King's First Minister. This memo is not a plea. It is a formal constitutional reminder of that fact." Starmer's lawyers have been completely and utterly outmanoeuvred. This leak now makes it impossible for the government to simply ignore the legal challenge. They have been publicly accused by the heir to the throne of breaking the unwritten constitution. The Starmer government's response, which we revealed 2 days ago, was to call William's intervention inappropriate involvement in political matters. That response now looks utterly ridiculous. This isn't politics, this is legality. Here is the second constitutional bombshell from Prince William's leaked memo, and this is where the situation becomes truly global, threatening to shatter Britain's standing on the world stage. On page 5 of the document, William reportedly charges the government with reckless disregard for the Commonwealth. This is absolutely stunning. According to sources who have seen the memo, William argues that the Starmer government, in its ideological rush to diminish the monarchy, has completely forgotten that King Charles is not just the King of the United Kingdom. He is the head of state for 14 other sovereign nations, including Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Here's the situation that's causing absolute panic in the Foreign Office right now. The proposed legislation, which would strip the king of ceremonial powers and publicly disclose his private communications, would apply to his role as King of the UK, but it would inevitably and disastrously bleed into his role as head of the Commonwealth. Think about what that means. William's memo reportedly asks a devastating question. Did the Prime Minister consult with the Prime Ministers of His Majesty's other realms before proposing legislation that fundamentally alters the nature of the Crown that they all share? The answer, according to a senior Whitehall source, is no. Starmer's government didn't even consider the global implications. They were so focused on their domestic political agenda that they insulted 14 other independent nations. This isn't just a constitutional crisis, it's a diplomatic catastrophe. William's memo argues that this legislation doesn't just attack the British Crown. It treats the Commonwealth realms as irrelevant colonial afterthoughts. This is the short-term political gain William warned about, and it has the potential to destabilise the entire Commonwealth. The fallout from this second bombshell, the attack on the Commonwealth, is already beginning. We've learned from trusted sources in Canberra and Ottawa that the Prime Ministers of both Australia and Canada are deeply concerned and were completely blindsided by the news. A diplomatic cable, which we have obtained portions of from the Australian High Commission to Canberra, describes the Starmer government's move as constitutionally reckless and deeply disrespectful. Let that sink in. The British government is being described as deeply disrespectful by one of its closest allies, all because of a radical, ideologically driven bill. One senior Canadian diplomat reportedly told a colleague, "We share a head of state. You cannot just change the rules of the shared monarchy without so much as a phone call. This is not how allies behave." This is the catastrophic miscalculation that Prince William's 12-page memo has so brilliantly exposed. He has shown that this isn't just about British tradition. It's about global stability and Britain's international reputation. But here's what this bombshell reveals about the deeper power struggle happening in Westminster. The radical backbench faction of Labour MPs, the ones who, as we revealed, met secretly and called the royals parasites, want this outcome. A leaked WhatsApp message from that same group sent just 3 hours ago allegedly reads, "If the Commonwealth realms are upset, good. It's time they grew up and became republics." This is the true devastating agenda. This isn't just about modernising the monarchy. This is a deliberate attempt by a small ideological faction to use Starmer's government to dismantle the monarchy and the Commonwealth all in one go. Prince William's memo has exposed that plot to the entire world, and Keir Starmer has been caught in the middle, exposed as either complicit in this radical plan or at best a constitutionally naive leader who has been played by his own party. This brings us to the third constitutional bombshell, and this is perhaps the most constitutionally brilliant part of Prince William's 12-page argument. On page 7 of the memo, he makes a charge of corrupting the civil service. This is not a man acting on emotion. This is a future king defending the very integrity of the British state. Here's the situation. We previously revealed that senior Mandarin civil servants were deeply uncomfortable with the proposed legislation, believing it to be unconstitutional. William's memo takes this to an entirely new level. According to sources who have read the document, William argues that the Starmer government, by pushing this legally questionable legislation, is forcing civil servants to violate their own constitutional oath. Think about what that means. The British civil service does not serve the Prime Minister of the day. They serve the Crown. Their entire code is built on political neutrality and upholding the Constitution. William's memo reportedly argues that the government is pressuring these permanent secretaries to provide legal justifications for a policy they know is unconstitutional. This is a direct violation of the Civil Service Code. One source described this section of the memo as a masterstroke. William isn't just defending himself or the royal family. He is positioning himself as the defender of the hundreds of thousands of politically neutral civil servants who are being forced to choose between their careers and their constitutional duty. He is, in effect, giving them constitutional cover. He is reminding them that their loyalty is to the Crown, not to the Labour Party. This is constitutional chess at the highest level, and it has sent a shockwave through every government department in Whitehall. But wait, because the situation gets significantly worse. And this is a revelation from William's memo that should alarm every single British citizen. Buried deep within the annex of the 12-page document, Prince William exposes a secret clause in Starmer's draft legislation, a clause that reveals the government knew the civil service would object. According to our sources, William's memo points to a section of the proposed bill that would give new sweeping powers to the Prime Minister to reassign or discipline senior civil servants, including permanent secretaries who are deemed to be obstructing the legislative agenda of His Majesty's government. Let me be crystal clear. This is a purge clause. It's a loaded gun aimed directly at the head of any civil servant who dares to follow their constitutional oath and question the government's radical agenda. The Starmer government didn't just pressure the civil service. They wrote a legal mechanism to punish them for their loyalty to the Crown. This is the executive overreach that constitutional experts have been warning about. It's a deliberate attempt to dismantle the checks and balances that have protected Britain from tyranny for centuries. Prince William, in his memo, reportedly calls this clause an affront to democratic principles and a hallmark of an illiberal state. This is no longer a debate about royal finances or ceremonial duties. This is a fight for the soul of the British Constitution. The government knew their plan was unconstitutional, and instead of changing the plan, they decided to legalise the punishment of anyone who pointed it out. This is the kind of detail that turns a political disagreement into a full-blown constitutional crisis. And Prince William has exposed it for the world to see. This brings us to the fourth constitutional bombshell, and this is the political genius of the 12-page memo. This is where Prince William directly challenges Keir Starmer's democratic right to even propose this legislation. On page 9 of the memo, William makes the devastating charge of public mandate deceit. Here's what's happening. According to sources who have analysed the memo, Prince William's team has done their homework. The memo reportedly quotes Keir Starmer's own party manifesto from the last general election. It forensically analyses every single line related to constitutional reform. And here is the killer point. William's memo states that nowhere in its electoral manifesto did the governing party ask the British people for a mandate to conduct such a radical and destabilising reorganisation of the British Constitution. This is an absolutely devastating political attack. William is accusing Starmer of lying to the British public. He is saying that Starmer won the election on a platform of stability and moderation and is now hijacking that victory to enact a radical ideological agenda that he never once had the courage to put to a vote. We revealed 2 days ago that Labour won with only 34% of the popular vote. Now, William is ramming that point home. He is essentially saying you do not have the people's permission. This charge of public mandate deceit is designed to hit the Labour Party where it hurts most. Its backbench MPs, especially the 12 MPs we know are already expressing serious doubts. They are now being told by the future king that they are supporting a policy their own voters never agreed to. They are being forced to choose between loyalty to their party's radical faction and the people who actually elected them. This is a strategic move to break Starmer's parliamentary support from within, and now we are seeing the immediate explosive impact of that public mandate deceit bombshell. The British people are not stupid. They know when they've been lied to. A new YouGov poll conducted in the last 12 hours since the first details of the memo were leaked shows a catastrophic 15-point drop in Starmer's personal approval rating. Let me repeat that. A 15-point drop. But wait, it gets even more devastating for the government. The same poll asked a new question. Do you believe the Prime Minister has a public mandate to make radical changes to the monarchy's constitutional role? An overwhelming 78% of British adults said no. This is the political suicide that Labour MPs in northern constituencies were terrified of. Prince William's 12-page memo has handed them a political grenade. The petition opposing the constitutional changes, which stood at 460,000 Rs 2 days ago, has now exploded. As of 6 p.m. this evening, it has surpassed 1.22 million signatures, making it one of the fastest growing petitions in UK history. This is the context for the government's hypocritical response. Remember that statement from the Labour spokesperson describing Prince William's intervention as inappropriate involvement in political matters? That's the line they're still pushing, even as 1.2 million people sign a petition supporting William's position. It's a deliberate attempt to silence him. But William's memo has now reframed the entire debate. This isn't inappropriate political involvement. This is a future king fulfilling his constitutional duty to warn the government that it is deceiving the public and acting without a mandate. The public clearly agrees with William, not with Starmer. This leads us to the fifth and final constitutional bombshell. This is the conclusion of Prince William's 12-page memo, and it is the most grave and devastating strike of all. On page 11, William lays out what he calls an imminent threat to the unity of the United Kingdom. Here's the situation. Prince William is not just the Prince of Wales. He is the future king of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. His memo reportedly argues that the crown is not just a symbol. It is the single golden thread that binds the four nations of the UK together. The memo then makes a terrifying and, according to legal experts, entirely accurate prediction. It argues that by launching this radical, ideologically driven attack on the crown, the Starmer government is fanning the flames of separatism and giving an unimaginable gift to nationalist movements in Scotland and Wales. Think about what that means. The memo reportedly states that if the monarchy is weakened and politicised by Westminster, the very argument for Scotland and Wales remaining in the Union is fatally undermined. William is accusing Keir Starmer of putting his own party's radical agenda above the very survival of the United Kingdom. This is the final devastating checkmate. William has positioned himself not as a privileged royal defending his family, but as the true defender of the Union. He is challenging Starmer on the very ground a prime minister is supposed to be strongest, national unity. A senior Conservative MP who has now read the memo told us just 30 minutes ago, "It's the most brilliant constitutional document I have ever read. William has trapped him. Starmer must now choose his radical backbenchers or the United Kingdom itself. He cannot have both."